What's up, guys? What are we doing? Jordan Reed did not practice. Same thing with the concussion. Full practice with Lichtensteiger, Merriweather, Daryl Young, and Trent Robinson.
Mike, with Jordan, is there any thought at this point to, or how bad is the concussion? Any thought to shutting him down?
We're testing him day by day. That would be a doctor's decision. Right now, that has not been talked about. Just evaluating him.
Is this concerning that it's gone on this long? I mean, because most guys have come back by this time. What's just the level of concern on how long this is still lingering for him?
Well, that's why he's seeing the doctors every day and seeing different doctors to see why he does have some headaches and why he hasn't passed the test. So it'll be an ongoing process, and I think that's why they have this process, to make sure somebody doesn't come back too early, no matter what type of headache they do have. But if they don't pass the test, there's reason for concern.
With Kirk, we haven't seen him obviously in a while. How has he progressed from last year to this year as a quarterback?
Well, he's going to get some. He's going to get a lot more repetition when you're the second-team quarterback. Normally, the second-team quarterback is getting very, very few reps, during the season, and all his reps are basically working the scout team. And so, to get the opportunity to get some reps with the first unit is something that he hasn't had for a while. So, he's jumping in full speed and getting as many reps as he can. Well, I think what you do as a second, third-team quarterback is not only you're getting reps as a scout teamer, and you're trying to relate plays that are being run against our defense and trying to look at it in our terms. So you can get better as a quarterback, go through the natural reads, even though the depth may be a little bit off. Some of the plays are a little bit off. Just getting those reps does help.
Is there any kind of takeaway from the fact that he played against Atlanta last year as well, or is that mostly irrelevant at this point?
Probably mostly irrelevant at this point, but he did get some, a valuable time in that game and had a couple good experiences and a couple tough experiences.
Kyle was just in here saying that the last week or so has been difficult to go through, not only because he's the offense coordinator, but because he's your son, because of the family tie. And I would assume that's reciprocated from your part. Some of the things that have been said about Kyle it's supposed to, your offensive coordinator, the fact that he's your son, must make it more difficult for you to stomach.
Well, I'm pretty. One of the reasons why we talked about this in the beginning, I've been through this. I've watched it happen with different families, and that's why somebody has to have somewhat of a resume before they do come in here, because if not, then it's total disaster because of the last name. And I think everybody wants to be judged by their work. I think that's natural, regardless who you are, but it's part of the process.
Mike, I know that there's times, end of the day, you go home, TV's on, whatever, where things can be chaotic. But when you guys are on the practice field right now, even with all this stuff swirling, does it feel normal, like for that hour and change when you guys are on the field in the bubble today?
Oh, it's definitely normal. Not everybody. I don't get a chance to watch TV, during the season. You get home at 10:30, and you get here at 5:30 in the morning. There's not a lot of TV watching, but I understand what goes with the process, and it's part of the National Football League, especially when you're having a rough year, and you know what's happening even though you don't see it, and some of the questions that are being asked. But the only thing you do to change it is win, and that's why your focus is on Atlanta, and that's why you put all your time and energy with your football team and your coaches on one goal, because if you get caught up in the other stuff, then you don't do your job.
Mike, going back to Kyle, how in these 4 years together have you seen him change, grow as both a man, as your son, but more also as a football coach?
Well, I think, if you look at any coach coming in, I'll talk about myself, that every year is a growing experience from your first year until whatever this is for me now in the National Football League, 30. Every year has been a growth. Because you gain valuable experiences. It could be on the field, off, as a head coach, as a coordinator, and you value that learning experience. It could be in a draft room. It could be free agency. There's a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of good things that happen, throughout your career. But you try to soak everything in, so when you are presented with decisions, you've been there before. You feel like you're making the right one because of your experience.
Just following up on that, do you think ultimately, whatever happens here, that he's a lot better off having experienced some of the things that go on around here, or in some ways was this more of a negative experience ultimately?
Well, every time that you go into a situation, I look at it as a positive no matter what happens. I thought one of my best learning years was the year and 4 games I lasted with the Raiders, 1988. I actually knew what I wanted as a head football coach, if I did get the opportunity again, what I was looking for. And I think that really extended from my opportunity I had at San Francisco as an offensive coordinator. So you learn. You were different organizations, different programs. A lot of people do things a lot of different ways. At the end, I think every job you do have, you look at the positives and you look at the negatives, and at the end, you grow from it, especially as a young coach.
To think back to that, too, I guess when you were hired as the Redskins coach, you knew coming in here this was a job, this was a project. Were you aware of how much of a project it would be, and do you think back on that and, that time and what it was going to take to turn this thing around?
Well, I think I knew exactly what it was going to take to turn this thing around. Yeah, that's from your experience, And then all of a sudden, sometimes things happen where you adjust, during the way. And, I think I shared that with you going into our 3rd year. We didn't expect that big of a hit. We didn't expect any hit. So when you do make a trade or you do all the things that you do, it's usually based on the information you have at hand. So a lot of times you have to adjust, and, that's the nature of the business.
When you made this move to bench Robert for the rest of the season, it was primarily because of the hits he was taking and the sacks he was taking. Do you, for lack of a better term, fear for Kirk at this point with 3 games to go, with the way this offensive line is seemingly not protecting that quarterback?
Well, first of all, that you make a decision that you feel that's based in the best interests of your organization. And you do take a look at Robert. You do take a look at Kirk. You do take a look at all the things you've talked about. Is the offensive line, the receivers, maybe somebody experienced something a little bit different in his high school career, his college career, his pro career. There's so many different factors into making a decision. But at the end of the day, you have to make a decision based on what you think is in the best interest of your organization long term. We don't get into details why, but I really believe this is in the best interest of the organization. And as I've spoke about before, that time will tell. But if we would have gone into the last 3 games and something did happen to Robert, I think would really affect him going into the next offseason.
Yesterday, John Madden made some comments in an interview where he said that benching Griffin could have an impact on the competitive balance of the league and might, affect teams that are still in the playoff race. Was that part of your consideration when you were making the decision?
Well, first of all, I respect the heck out of John. I've known John for a long time, and does an unbelievable job. But unless you're really in the situation, you're in our situation, it's really hard to jump into somebody's shoes. And everybody's got opinions on everything, especially when you get paid to give your opinions. But when you're here and you're the coach, you're going to do the best thing that you believe with all the facts involved that is the best thing for the organization. And sometimes you don't know all the things that we're evaluating.
Coach, what will Robert's role be on Sunday, on game day?
Well, he's in a position just like Rex Grossman was. He's getting ready for the game. If Rex gets sick or Kirk gets sick, he's got to be up. He's got to be ready to go. That's the nature of the business. So the third-team quarterback is inactive if the other 2 quarterbacks are healthy. And that's the nature of if you go with 2 quarterbacks. If somebody would get injured in the next 2 games, we would probably bring somebody back on our football team, or we wouldn't have to put Robert in that situation. But if somebody got hurt or somebody got sick the night before the game, Robert's got to be ready to be a player in the game. So he's got to prepare himself both mentally and physically.
Coach, what happens if Kirk lights it up in these next 3 games and plays at a very high level moving forward into the offseason into the next year?
Well, that's the problem that you want to have. You want everybody playing good. You know, we made a decision a long time ago that Robert is our quarterback. He's our quarterback of the future. We made this decision based on what we think is best for him, and it could be the best for our organization. If he lights it up, we've got a lot of options with Kirk. I hope that's what happens. Anybody else?
It looks like he's done for the season now. You guys, the practice window expired.
Yeah, that's he would be done. Yeah. Okay.